Welcome back. I set out a couple weeks ago to learn about storytelling, and oh my goodness, there is so much to learn. I realized I have some questions to answer. Is storytelling an art or a science? Well, it turns out it's both an art and a science. Scientists say that listening to or telling a story is good for our brains. Cortisol, dopamine, and oxytocin are released into our brains, and those chemicals help us to form memories, engage with our emotions, and connect with our feelings of empathy. I got really excited because dopamine and oxytocin are related to happiness. So I'm thinking maybe that's why I feel so happy after I watch a good movie. And cortisol reduces inflammation and helps form memories. That's great news because that means the more stories I tell and the more movies I watch, the healthier I'm gonna be, right? So let's talk about the art of storytelling. So to find out more, I had to go back. I mean, way back. Not that far back. I just had to go back a couple thousand years to one of our great philosophers, Aristotle. He talked about a formula for stories, which we still see in most movies today. He talked about pity, fear, and catharsis. So now I'm going to try to connect those ideas to our characters, the protagonist and the antagonist. Let's start with the protagonist. First, you have to create a situation for the audience to pity the main character, the protagonist. Aristotle wrote that tragedy or drama imitates men that are slightly better than average. In other words, we don't empathize with a character who just keeps making stupid choices. We empathize with better than average character who, by no fault of their own, are faced with the antagonist. Now that the character is better than average, we can imagine that we could be put in the same situation, and we can empathize with the character. Now, the antagonist can be anything from a worn-out shoe to a nuclear threat, but it won't be a great story if we just have a bad situation. We need to up the stakes. What will happen if the protagonist doesn't succeed? We need to be worried and feel fear for our character. If there's no clear stakes, the viewer, they just won't care. Last, let's talk about catharsis. Catharsis means that your character and you, the viewer, are cleansed from the problem for good. Even if your protagonist defeats the antagonist and avoids all the worst stakes, it's not enough. You don't want your character to go back tomorrow and get in the same situation again. Your character needs to come away changed in some way. If you're feeling stuck for an idea, you could use something like these Storymatic cards. The character cards are on one end. Here I've got a person with a weak heart and a hitchhiker. You could have these characters be two different characters, or you can combine them to create one character. And you can add as many situation cards as you want. Here we've got regret and robbery. There's lots of ways you could use these cards to trigger your creative storytelling. If you think you have a good story, try giving it my Jack and Jill test. Jack and Jill is a story that fails on every part of the formula. The first part says Jack and Jill went up the hill to get a pail of water. Do we pity Jack and Jill? Can we identify with them? Not really. I mean, even the fact that they're going uphill to get water is a little bit odd since water flows downhill. Usually pools at the bottom. I'm kind of feeling like I don't connect with Jack and Jill. I certainly don't pity them because I don't know why they're getting the water. Is their mother dying of thirst? We don't know. It fails to get me to empathize with them. Then Jack falls down and breaks his crown, and Jill comes tumbling after. We don't know why they fell. Were they goofing around up there? Did he push her? Did she push him and then we just don't know. Maybe her bucket got stuck on his sleeve. The worst thing has happened. Jill and Jack have fallen down the hill. Do I feel fear for them? Not really. They're both at the bottom. The next thing is catharsis. Jack goes home and gets vinegar and brown paper and puts it on his head. Did he go back and get Jill? No, we don't know what happened to Jill. He left Jill behind. He hasn't transformed. He hasn't become a better character. So therefore, there is no catharsis. So if you think your story might be failing in any one of the ways Jack and Jill fail, it's time to go back and fix those things so that we can really commit to your story. In this process, I also learned a little bit about story structures. There are many, many story structures in which you can organize your story. There's multiple timelines, nested loops, spark lines, converging ideas, and more. But don't worry about those things now. Those choices can come later. But I'll put some links in the description where you can explore story structure if you like. For now, we just need the basic story, and when you think you have one, it's time to write an elevator pitch or a logline for your story. The elevator pitch. Creating this pitch will help you commit to your idea. You can always improve on it, but don't give up on your story. Imagine this is what's written as the description for your movie when it's on Netflix. It doesn't have to be perfect or clever. In fact, to prove that, here's mine. Zeno, a lonely alien robot, searches the universe to find a companion before his power runs out, when he discovers a series of shiny objects that lead him to his last hope for friendship and salvation. So does my story sound a little silly? Yes, it does. Am I going to do it anyway? Yes, I am. Listen, you can always stop yourself from being creative. You can stop yourself by feeling that maybe your idea isn't good enough. You could say, I don't have the equipment, I'm not good at animation, I'm not good at shooting, I'm not good at editing. But don't let those things stop you. I hope you follow along with your own project and enjoy this process. So this weekend, make sure you go out and find your story and write an elevator pitch for your project. In the next episode, we'll be storyboarding and timing out our story in LumaFusion. See you next time. Hey, what are you doing standing around? Shouldn't you get cracking on that story?
What?